Hey! In the last video we looked at multiplying by one-digit numbers using the standard written method. In this video we'll look at multiplying by two digits using this method. Now this is often called long multiplication. So let's jump in and find ourselves a calculation. So here we have one. We have a three-digit number multiplied by a two-digit number. So I'm just going to start off by labelling the digits in each number so I know which column they are in place value. So let's start with the first one. 543. So the 3 is in the units column, 4 is in the tens column, and the 5 is in the hundreds column. Then if we take the second number, which is 23, the 3 is in the units column, the 2 is in the tens column. Now, just like the method we used for multiplying by a single digit, and most multiplication written methods, what we end up doing is multiplying each part of one number by each part of the other number. So in this case, let's start with the units here. We're going to multiply the 3 here by the 3 here. So that would be 3 multiplied by 3. Then we're going to multiply the 3 by the next part, which is 4 tens. So that would be 3 multiplied by 4 tens. So we can write that as 40, or 4 tens. Then we're going to multiply the 3 units again with the 5 hundreds. So that would be 3 multiplied by 5 hundreds, which we can write like that, or like that. So that's fairly straightforward. That's very similar to multiplying by a single digit. The difference here is we've actually got two parts to the number we are multiplying by. So we're going to do the same thing, but this time with the second or the first digit, depending on how you look at it, in this number, which is 2. Now this isn't just 2 though, because it's in the tens column. So actually this is 20, or 2 tens. So what we're going to do after that is we're going to multiply 2 tens by 3 units. So we can write 2 tens as 20. Then we're going to multiply the 2 tens by the 4 tens, which we can write as 20 multiplied by 40. Then we're going to multiply the 2 tens by the 5 hundreds, which we can write as 20 multiplied by 5 hundreds. Now we could do this the other way. We could take the first number and multiply each part of that by each part of the other number. So we could do 3 multiplied by 2 tens and 3 multiplied by 3, and then 4 tens multiplied by 2 tens and 4 tens multiplied by 3 units, and then we would do 5 hundreds multiplied by 2 tens and 5 hundreds multiplied by 3 units. We could do that as well. So how does this look when we come to our standard written method? Well, let's start off by laying it out. Very similar to the way we did it before. I'm going to start off by just noting down my place value headings. So I can see, well, let's do this. I've got 100, and I've got a 10 unit, 10 and unit. So I'm going to start off by writing 100 heading, then a 10, and then a unit. Now looking at this number, I'm probably going to be ending up with thousands and maybe even 10,000s. Then once again, I'm going to take the first number and I'm going to write it into my place value headings here. So that's 543. Then I'm going to take the second number, 23, and place that underneath. Now I'm going to color coordinate here. You don't have to if you don't want to. Then I'm going to draw a line underneath, which possibly could be straight. You would of course use a ruler, no doubt. And I'm going to put a multiplication symbol in the corner to remind me that I'm doing multiplication. Now, as before, I'm going to start off with the column in the far right. Now, you tend to do this with all methods, no matter what operation you're using, whether it's addition, subtraction, multiplication. Slightly different with division. So I'm going to start with the 3 here. And what I'm going to do, I've just rubbed out my units column. There we go. As we looked at previously, I'm going to take the 3 and I'm going to multiply it with each part of the first number here. So I'm going to take the 3, multiply it by the 3 here, so 3 times 3, and they're both in the units column, so that would be 9. So I'm just going to place the 9 in my units column. Fairly straightforward with that one. Then I'm going to give that a tick actually, just to remind me that I've done it. Then I'm going to multiply the 3 by the 4 tens here. So 3 times 4 tens would give me 12 tens. Now once again I can't put 12 into the one column, so I'm going to put the 2 and move the 1 into the hundreds column to remind me that I'm going to need to add that in a minute. Then let's give that a tick, so I know I've done that. Then I'm going to do the 3, multiply the 3 by the 500s. So 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 500 would be 1500s, or 1500, or 1500 if you are American. Then so it'd be 1500s plus the 100 I've moved over would give me 1600s. Again, I can't have 16 in one column, so I'm going to place the 6 there and the 1 in the thousands column. Now I haven't got a thousands to multiply here, so I can just move that 1000 up. Okay, so that's fairly straightforward at that point. Tick. Now the next step does get a little bit confusing and a little bit busy, but it's fairly straightforward when you get the hang of it. Because now what we're going to do is we're going to multiply, just like we did with the 3 units, we're going to multiply the 2 tens with each part of the other number. So if we have a look at what we talked about here, we're going to be multiplying it by the 3, the 40, and the 500. So our first one that we need to multiply it by is 3 here. So we're going to have to do 2 by 3. But it's not actually 2. This is actually 2 tens. So what we're actually going to be doing is 2 tens, and we can write it as 20, multiplied by 3 units, which equals, well, if we did 2 times 3, that would be 6. So 20 times 3 is 10 times as big, so it's got to be 60. Now that's actually 6 tens. So I wouldn't be placing it here. So we start the second number, we start a new line. Now you could start it here. I'm going to leave that line because I've used that for my carries. So I'm going to put it down here. Now I couldn't put my 6 here in the units column because it's not actually 6 units. It's 6 tens. So what I'm going to have to do is place that in tens column, so it's going to be 6 tens, and then I'm going to put a 0 in the units column as a placeholder to show there's nothing in the column. You'll often probably be told that when you're doing 2-digit multiplications, you always put a 0 at the start of the second line, and this is the reason why. So we've done 2 tens times 3 units, tick. The next one we're going to do is 2 tens times 4 tens. Okay, so that is actually 20 multiplied by 40. So 2 tens multiplied by 4 tens. So 2 times 4 is 8, and 20 multiplied by 40 is 800, because this calculation is 100 times as big as this calculation. So that is the same as saying 8 hundreds. So I wouldn't be putting that into the tens column, even though it's just below the one that I've just, even though I've just multiplied by the tens, that would go into the hundreds column, like so. Okay, and you'll probably notice as we're going along, it's actually following the same kind of rules that we did for the first digit. It's just we've had to move, we've shifted along one column because we're now multiplying numbers that are 10 times as big as the first column. So that's a nice way to think about it as well. You're doing the same thing, you've just shifted along a column. Okay, and then finally we're going to do our last calculation here, which is 2 tens multiplied by the 500s. So if we were to look at that as a calculation, it would be 2 tens or 20 multiplied by 500s, which is 500, like that. Now 2 multiplied by 5 is 10. So 20 multiplied by 5 would be 10,000. The reason that is the case is because this calculation is 1,000 times bigger than this calculation. So what we would have there is we have 10,000s, but again we can't write 10,000s in that column, so we move the calculation, we move one of those 10,000, well the only 10,000s, into the next column. I thought we might need a 10,000s column, so let's put one in, and we move that into that column. Now we don't have a 10,000s to multiply here, so that one moves just up into the calculation. So it's always that second line, the second digit, that gets a bit confusing. So a couple of key points is always remember the 0 here, because you are now multiplying by a number that is at least 10 times bigger than your original digit. Then follow the same rules, but essentially with the column to the left. Now we need one last step here, and I'll draw a line under these two calculations. What our last step is, that is a really not straight line, but hey ho. We're going to add up two totals here. So we're going to add up the total from this calculation and add up the total for this calculation. Now you'll notice they're already neatly into place value, so we can just use our column method for addition to do that. So we do 9 plus 0, which is 9. 2 plus 6, which is 8. 6 plus 8, which is 14. Again, we can't have 14 in one column, so I'm going to put the 4 and carry the 1,000. Then 1,000 plus 0 thousands plus the 1,000 I carried gives 2,000, and we've just got 1 10,000 in this column. And that is how you can use the standard written method to multiply by a 2-digit number. It has that extra step involved in it, where we are multiplying by the first or second digit, however you want to look at it, which is this number here. And that is where it gets a little bit tricky, because you have to remember that you're multiplying by a number that is essentially at least 10 times as big. Okay, and that's how we can use the standard written method for multiplying by 2-digit numbers. And this is what is often called long multiplication. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a go and practice your long multiplication. Have fun, and I'll see you next time.